Welcome back to Reimagine 2021. I'm Yonah Hochhauser, and today I'm glad to be joined by Red, Community Rep at Harvest Finance. Red, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Well, yes, our first time talking. I'm very excited to speak to you. We spoke a little bit off camera, but the main goal of this conference is our 7th conference here at Reimagine, is really the history of coins. So my first question to you is, when did you first hear about Bitcoin?
I kind of have like this vague memory sitting in a cubicle at my work, kind of hearing about Bitcoin in the news and just the wild price fluctuations. And I remember distinctly laughing to myself, like, these guys are a bunch of knuckleheads. They're buying like electronic baseball cards and calling it money. Like, this will never work, right? And this was years and years and years ago. And it's just so funny, flash forward now to like how involved I am with it. It's just, anything I doubt in the future, I gotta make sure I invest in, right? Because those are the things that end up working out.
Right. And I think that's a similar reaction a lot of us had. I mean, I know when I first heard about it, I thought the same thing too. Like, why would I put any real money into this like digital internet money? But when was that shift for you? When did it change from you kind of like looking at it with mockery to whoa, this thing might be legit?
For me, it was actually hearing about Ethereum and smart contracts. Like Bitcoin has the store of value in digital gold and kind of more that I've learned about that's pretty cool in itself. But to me, when I heard about smart contracts and you could deploy like programming or an organization autonomously on the internet, like for me, like the crystallization was like a casino. Imagine if you could globalize a casino that had no borders, no government interference, and then token holders were like the dividend holders, right, or collectors of that casino. Like, just something that you could take Vegas but globalize it and no interference. Like, how much money could like stream and flow through that, right? And so then if you just think about like all these other functions that people in countries that don't necessarily have access to all this the equal things that we do, that could be brought forth by Ethereum, right? So, or smart contract platforms. So to me, that's when I really saw the value in crypto, was when you could kind of go beyond that store of value.
For sure. And it's funny, they pitched themselves as the world computer. You saw it only as the world casino. But that is a great a use case. I mean, that's a wonderful thing. The beauty of it, you could kind of program anything on a smart contract. That's something I've always wondered. Why is there not a bookie, a betting system? Right now, sports betting is legal in New York now, and a lot of big sites pop up. But it seems like such an obvious use case to me. Sports betting is sort of this decentralized bookie. Why trust a bookie when you could have this decentralized pairing through the use of smart contracts of betting? Do you see that coming to fruition?
I really hope so. And there's been a couple of projects that I followed. I think there is only a few that's really managed to get most of it decentralized from following these projects. What I've understood is like a lot of the data that comes from that says like, hey, Green Bay beat the Minnesota Vikings or whatever, that comes from a lot of centralized sources, right? Yeah. And then the data itself is very messy. So how do you parse that data in a very decentralized way? So like one of the projects, a quick example is like, again, that football game starting at 10 a.m. in the morning. Well, some of the feeds may say 10:05 or 10:07. And so if you have three conflicting feeds with the timing, you can't find consensus, right? And it could be just a minute off, but then you can't find consensus when you have that small variation. So that's actually the hardest part about sports betting, at least from what I've seen, is them trying to clean up the data and then find consensus on that data without any kind of centralization settlement mechanism. And that's still extremely difficult. I don't think anybody's really solved that yet.
Yeah, and this comes back to this idea of, this ideological idea of decentralization, of the kind of this importance of decentralization. But I feel like that's a belief that only kind of like, us early adopters really care about. We're the ones who care about self-custody. We're the ones who care about decentralization. But as we see, newcomers, come into the field, not because for ideological reasons, because either to make a lot of money, hey, I heard Bitcoin's going up or Ethereum's going up, I want to buy it, or just because it could provide a service that's better, faster, cheaper, yada yada. I feel like these new people, the newcomers, don't really care as much about decentralization. Do you think, as we onboard the next billion crypto users and the world slowly gets, comes into the whole field, do you think that which way will it go? Will the people already in it convince the newcomers about the importance of decentralization, or will they just bombard us and overwhelm us, and then decentralization will slowly drift away, into the corners of the crypto sphere where it has been? We have been the corner of the world, the small crypto sphere. Once the crypto sphere becomes big, will decentralization go to the corner of the crypto sphere?
That's hard to say. I think there will be some products that can be very much decentralized and kind of run by a DAO, but there's always a lot of complications that, like, you can see even from some of these newer projects that have kind of sat in, and they launch like a DAO token, and then they say, okay, let's get some proposals going. But then the messy part is everybody just starts throwing everything against the wall, and you'll get these most ridiculous proposals, stuff that doesn't even really have to do with the project. And you're like, well, this is what true decentralization is, right? Like, anybody can throw any idea at the wall, and then you have to vote whether it's a good idea or not. And so things can kind of get very messy and complex. The other part is when you're thinking about those newcomers. I was just talking to a guy the other day, has lots of money in fiat, but has been hearing about Bitcoin and all the things in the news lately, wants to come over, but has a lot of questions. And one of them is the permanence of anything, right? Like, if he miskeys the address sending his $1 million, well, there's nobody to bail him out. There's no FDIC or whatever. And so to me, like, that's a hard hurdle to overcome for like Aunt Matilda wanting to like invest her money from the mainstream of this until you fix that. So to me, I almost think that there's probably going to have to be some kind of centralization, at least for the mainstream, balanced with decentralization, right? Like, I don't want to use Coinbase as an example, right? But like, you can buy crypto through them and do it safely, and then you can kind of move it off into the decentralized world, right? So you're always going to kind of need some of those centralized portals to help the mainstream people out. So it may be a little DeFi itself or pure decentralization. I don't think it'll be like super small niche per se, but I don't think it's really going to be this dominant thing that you see really people preaching from the mountaintops, right? I think it'll probably end up being like a hybrid of both.
Right. And yeah, I think that ties hand in hand with this idea of community. That community is so important to cryptocurrencies. That's one of the big things that Ethereum had going for it early and still has maintained, is just very devoted community, both in developer base and user base. Your community rep at Harvest Finance. And so I think people coming from the traditional finance world, like, what is community? Like, there is no like Capital One community, Charles Schwab community. I'm a Charles Schwab or die, and there is no real equivalent of this idea that community drives decisions, community drives development, and really community drives innovation. That there is no equivalent to that in the traditional, or for the most part, in the traditional world. Do you think, as it becomes more and more successful, this community model in the crypto world, that we can actually see it being adopted more in the traditional world, where people say, whoa, there is a certain power to community. We've been seeing this with Wall Street bets, with the GameStop memes. And so the world is slowly starting to see the power of numbers. Even where the little guy, the small guy, you have a big enough community of it, you can make real change.
Yeah, I think when people feel like they're truly connected or bought in, whether that's because you hold a token or you feel like your voice matters within that kind of governance or chat room that you're kind of hanging out in, that makes people feel empowered, and then it really connects them to the product that they've bought or whatever, right? So like you said, there's no Amazon chat room that I go and hang out and talk about with people like, oh, I love Amazon, this is a great place. But like, there's no dividend holders chat room, right? So yeah, the crypto is very unique, but I think it's showing you, and like specifically at Harvest, we have core developers, and they do all the programming. They push out the main product that you see. And then you have community, which includes me. Like, I'm just a guy that showed up on week one. I'm like, hey, this project sounds really cool. Let me figure it out. I started talking to other people in chat. I'm just very naturally kind of chatty person, which is why I'm on a podcast with you. And then they made me a moderator. And so like, I'm just a community member, like any guy off the street that's just kind of now, through my own kind of like helpfulness or whatever, are now talking to people like you and trying to like spread the word, right? So I think community is very important, because again, especially when you're in this decentralized world, you're not supposed to have like the central body calling all the shots and like true decentralization, right? So you really want to empower people like myself that have good ideas, people that are, non-core developers of the project, but may have good ideas themselves. So many times that a core dev is kind of said, here's my idea in the chat. And then we've gotten so much feedback. It's like, I didn't even see what that angle was, right? And then we kind of tweak things. I think at big main institutional companies, they kind of just get one idea. They tell you, the user, this is how it's going to be. And then maybe they get some feedback, but they eventually just roll out what they're gonna do, because that's what they've already kind of invested all their money in. And then maybe it's a customer fit or not. I think kind of with this paradigm that you're seeing rolling out, there's more of a custom fit. It's more about the true customer using your product. And so I think that's kind of why you see like a lot more excitement in crypto, and a lot of like these huge valuations that come out of nowhere, right? Because people just kind of get naturally excited about these things. Like, I really want to be a part of this. Well, you can't really do that so much with crypto. Maybe a little bit with Tesla, right? Because you can like kind of feel like the ride with Elon Musk, and he's kind of hyping stuff up, but that's just very unique. So I think in crypto, I think community is definitely a plus, because one, it's a great feedback mechanism. You get a really good tie-in with your customer base, and then again, you can really customize your product to what that customer wants, as opposed to really going back and forth, trial and error with like negative feedback.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and a lot of, like you mentioned, there's this dialogue between the companies, between the projects and the communities. You said a dev would put forth something, and the community would talk back, and the let's say the arena or the platform where these discussions are happening, Discord, Twitter, these are level playing fields, where the people who are behind the projects and the people who are interacting with the projects, the community, they're meeting in this intermediary ground, as opposed to in the traditional world. If I have a problem with my iPhone, I have to go and call up customer service, and I'm pretty much going to their arena. I'm going to their grounds, and I'm please let me speak to someone. Don't put me on hold. And so it's a very uneven, let's say, power dynamic there, or even it's not a place where I feel comfortable. I'm kind of in their living room in that scenario. So I do think that's a very cool aspect of the cryptosphere. Is like this kind of like these communities and these meeting rooms. And the dialogue that's constantly happening between the projects and the communities themselves, which is really cool. I don't think that, if you look at Satoshi, the original white paper, or even Ethereum, I don't think they foresaw this. I think they looked at it as a technology, but I don't think in their wildest dreams they could have imagined the kind of the social aspect. It was all supposed to be peer-to-peer, but peer-to-peer, hey, I don't trust you. I'm going to use this technology to allow me to transact. I don't think they realized, hey, peer-to-peer, but also let's be friends. And let's communicate on the side, so which is very interesting. Now, if we look at where we are today, if we're looking across the whole sphere with all the various blockchains, rather all these protocols, dApps, assets, money locked in, the coverage in the mainstream media, which is mostly because of price, but still coverage nonetheless. If we look at where we are now, and we look back, Bitcoin white paper came out about 10, 11 years ago. Ethereum also like 4 years ago. Are we further along, exactly where we thought we would be, or kind of farther back? I don't know what's the word. A slower in our advancement. Looking back today and looking back to where we started, as a technology, we're brand new, but in terms of what we've accomplished so far, do you think this is where you would have expected us to be?
I like the technological advance that we're seeing. Whether it's just like competitive chains or just ideas. And then even the applications themselves that are coming out, right? Like, as you said, nobody really saw like this huge social aspect when Ethereum started. And I don't think anybody saw like things like NFTs like coming out and just, being this mega, even more social kind of thing going on, right? What I think has taken a step back and probably holds back the mainstream a little bit is just kind of like the very shilliness and kind of a little bit like smoke and mirror Ponzi nature of crypto. Like back in 2017, like I think they said like 98% of all ICOs failed, right?
Right.
And how many millions of dollars did all those ICOs raise? And so I think that we kind of still see a little bit of that today too, with all the forking and like yield farming mania, where it's the quality of the project isn't necessarily assessed. It's just like, oh, new farm, let's go get the high APYs, right? So, and I think that's just very like intimidating or scary for anybody on the outside, because then all you hear about in the media is like, oh, another rug pull, another $20 million lost, right? And so who wants to jump into something like that? So you kind of have these hurdles where you have UX challenges, or like I mentioned, you could send $1 million to the wrong address, it'd be gone. You have stuff, again, like the shilliness and the Ponzi schemes. So in that respect, I think we're still like holding still or sliding back a little bit, because that's mainly what you're hearing about crypto right now. It's just price, or hacks, and that's overwhelming a lot of the good stuff that's actually happening. And so I think in order to really truly take that next big leap forward, we really need to reevaluate the thought process, or like the mindset that we're putting towards to how we're covering crypto as a whole, and more talking about like the educational pieces like we're doing now, as opposed to like, hey, next 10x to the moon coin here, and like, shame on Elon Musk hyping Dogecoin all the time, right? Because that's kind of like what gets you to buy in a Dogecoin at 8 cents when it shouldn't really be 8 cents. And now it's crashing back down. All these people lost money and it continues to give us a bad name, right? So there are some really amazing things that are occurring out of, DeFi and cryptocurrencies. But like, I think it's just kind of being overwhelmed by this media narrative that I really think we need to overcome.
Mm-hmm. For sure. And, as we see the mainstream interest in the crypto sphere has always so far been price action, if the speculation, if the numbers are skyrocketing, or negativity, hacks, scams, and terrorists using Bitcoin to blow up the world, or whatever craziness they're saying that week. But I mean, understandable, because technology is not sexy. Technology is complicated. No one wants to hear about Merkle trees and scalability, and it just doesn't interest people. And so, do you feel that as a community, because it is decentralized, there really isn't anyone alive behind Bitcoin, or there really isn't any, let's say, centralized figures that really are behind all these protocols. Do you think as a community, we have to do a better job of branding crypto, of kind of getting the message out to the masses? Hey, this isn't just about getting rich quick tomorrow. This isn't just about whatever they may be hearing, but actually educating them about the possibilities of, opening up financial tools that historically have not been available to everyone, to the masses, and the ability, if you're in Argentina and your fiat currency is being devalued and inflated, hey, you have this other option. So do we need to do a better job as a community of really explaining kind of more what's behind, what's more the possibilities here, instead of just saying get rich quick?
Yeah, definitely. Like, I've always had this idea in my head that like there could be this sort of like DeFi alliance, where almost like the heads of like these really blue chip projects, where you get like Stanny from Avi or Andre from YFI or whatever, and they kind of like team up to like to form like this alliance or whatever, and just say like, instead of this focus on, hey, we're just talking about new strategies that we're rolling out or new product we're rolling out, is how can we explain to the little guy that's in fiat and all these things that they kind of do in their banking systems, how they could do that with us today without that central banker putting their hand in their pocket, right? And so I think we do a very, very poor job of that. And that was very crystallized for me. Again, I was speaking with somebody who's, again, fiat world, has a good amount of money. They're concerned about, stimulus checks being printed and devaluation of fiat. And is this really the time to move over to Bitcoin? But again, just a lot of those concerns of like, how do I do this easily? What are the trappings? Why don't people know that you can make 40% on a digital dollar? Where does that come from? This seems like all a scam. And so, like, again, those are the hurdles that you're going to have to clear, because all they're hearing about is price versus price, percentiles, and nobody's telling them, like, yeah, this is actually viable. Like, these are really brilliant people that have come from the economic side of fiat, come to decentralize and apply those principles, but again, without a central banker with their hand in your pocket. So until we really stop focusing on numbers, and saying, like, this is how we achieve those numbers, this is how you, Joe Schmo, can do it too. Again, we're going to still be stuck in this holding pattern of shill.
Mm-hmm. And how concerned are you, or how effective or ineffective is it that so much of DeFi is built on the Ethereum network right now, and it's if you're a regular guy yourself who's not doing a big trade, it's impossible to use. You cannot swap anything, you can't transact anything. The fees are just way too high, and obviously that gives another great reason to use an aggregator like Harvest Finance or many of the other ones out there, because you are pooling in with others to kind of make a lump transaction, so the hit from the gas fees isn't as bad. But for the average person, where crypto was once hey, I could transfer $1 billion and pay 1 penny in fees, which was once kind of something that we were very proud of in the crypto sphere, was this like, are you tired of paying outrageous fees at the bank? Come over here and pay nothing. And we've kind of, especially with Ethereum mostly, gone away from that, where it's just too expensive for the little guy to use. Do you feel that this will actually have any damaging effects? Like, this will actually keep anyone out, or everyone who's already using these products is already a believer and is fine just waiting it out or switching over to another blockchain?
To me, I think we're just too early right now. It's very kind of easy to get caught up in the narratives if you're deep into crypto, right? But like I said, I don't think this is really mainstream technology yet, right? So, like, they're saying scaling may come to Ethereum in the next couple of years. You're also going to have some L2 solutions, right? So, like, I think everybody's kind of like fretting now, like, oh no, like Ethereum's too overwhelmed. But to me, like, the systems aren't even ready for like all of these mainstream people to come in. So I don't think it's a huge worry right now. It's a worry for us that are kind of trapped in the system and using it because the costs are going up so much. But at the same time, it tells me the system's being used, right? It's not like a dead system. It's not barren and empty and expensive. It's mainly expensive because it's, I don't want to use the word inefficient, but it's just very congested from our usage. Think of a freeway, right? Like, is a freeway worthless because it has a bunch of traffic on it? No, people are just trying to get places, right? So yeah, very much sucks for the little guy like me. I'm a little guy. I don't have a bunch of money, and it's very difficult to swap tokens on Ethereum. Does that mean the technology is bad or it's not viable? No, we just need to find solutions to that. And right now, to be honest, like, most of these people complaining are people that are just trying to speculate and make money on, right? And like, ultimately, we want to get Ethereum to like the next phase or any of these other chains. It's really about building up the technology. So I think for us, we kind of need to, or for a developer, not us, but just need to ignore that kind of heat and just keep doing what you're doing, and making sure that you're then trying to deliver or overcome those bottlenecks right now, or ultimately people will go to those other chains, right? Or at least the smaller users will. But again, I just kind of thinking about like the early internet. Even that was just very messy, pop-up spam everywhere. Various internet connection speeds to get to it. So every user's experience was different, right? Until they kind of broadband or cable modems, whatever, became ultimately the standard, and now everybody kind of has the same equal access to it. And so to me, I think that's kind of what Ethereum or cryptocurrencies are going to be. You just kind of have to get over this technological hurdle where you can kind of mainstream and level set it for everybody, and they're working towards that, right? So to me, I don't see it overly as this big concern. I just see it as kind of like this big media thing to jump on right now. Oh, all these people are leaving Ethereum because it's so slow. No, there's plenty of people still building on these other things. I think it's just a news cycle that we need to get past.
For sure. And to give I didn't do any developing. To give all the developers in the cryptosphere credit, there is such a brand new technology. I mean, in the grand scheme of technology, we are in the fetus stage of the technology. And already is it capable of so much. Now, is the UI UX there for your grandmother, to use? No, but that's okay. We're getting there. They're building functionality. They're building accessibility, and it's incredible. It's incredible the rate of innovation. If we were talking, just a year ago, we'd be saying DeFi. I mean, that's that thing. That's that small stage in the corner of crypto conferences that like no one really goes to. And today, who uses Uniswap? Pancake Swap's the only real way to swap now. So like everything just changes so quickly. I wonder, what will it take or what's more important for actually getting the mainstream in? Right now we have pretty strong functionality and pretty shitty UI UX. Even going to Harvest or really any of these DeFi protocols, they're not the easiest to use. I mean, some are easier than others, but the aesthetic still looks like, it's, and I think some purposely look like it's from the 80s and 90s kind of cyberpunk days. And then also the actual functionality is so foreign to just the regular person. I mean, how am I supposed to explain yield farming to my mom? How am I supposed to? So which do you think is really a bigger barrier to the mainstream adoption? Is it kind of the nice aesthetic and easy to understand kind of UI UX, or is it even just fundamentally a functionality issue of they have no idea of these concepts? You have to explain to them from the bottom up, this new economic model.
To me, I think it's just making it easy to use, right? Because like, does grandma know when she goes to JP Morgan and gives them her $10,000 retirement fund, like how all those hedge funds and bonds or whatever are working, right? Like she has no idea. She's kind of just putting trust in that the place that she's depositing with is going to do the right strategical thing with her money, right? So I think the same can be said about crypto, but they need to have that like intrinsic trust, right? Again, if I type in the wrong wallet address and lose all my money, that's not trust, right? Like that's a fundamental break in how you interact with these systems, right? So nobody's ever going to be comfortable. Like I'm still very uncomfortable sending money to like my own wallets, right? Like I copy and paste and then I make sure the first four and the last four match, right? And even sometimes people's, like you'll read on internet, I pressed copy on Coinbase and it didn't copy the whole address and I pasted it and now my money's lost forever. And it's just like, man, and I've done a fat finger mistake on Ether Delta way back in the day and lost $4,000. And that was like, oh my gosh. So, like to me, like, again, I think it's all about the UX and how we can get into crypto easily, because it's even difficult. Like, you mentioned Harvest Finance. We try to make it as simple as we can for every user, but even going to Coinbase, doing KYC, buying some Ethereum, sending it to your MetaMask, then connecting MetaMask to Harvest, depositing, right? Like there's so many steps there, as opposed to like in the fiat world, it's kind of just like click, 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 deposit, and then you're done. And then you feel pretty confident that you're going to make money. So like, in my opinion, it's all about the UX and making it simple and safe for the user. Otherwise, you're just never going to get adoption, no matter how awesome your product is. And that's kind of always been the history of the world. You can be the inventor of the greatest product in the world, but if you don't sell it right, and if it's not like intuitive, easy to use, you're probably going to fail, right? And so that's kind of what you see even in crypto, is the most shilled and the most kind of like fancy looking thing is the one that pumps in price the most, because that's what attracts people, not necessarily the most like complex, awesome invention for DeFi ever.
Mm-hmm. And yet, to give credit to kind of yield farming aggregators like Harvest and others like it, I think they have so far done the best job of taking all this complex backend, all this complex even economics, and just saying, hey, okay, we understand you don't have the time to follow all this shit, that you don't have the time to understand all this shit. Press deposit, and we'll take care of the rest. And so that is exciting to finally start seeing. Kind of, for so long, I've been working in the industry for a while, and this word was that, where's the killer DApp? Where's the killer DApp? And we're no longer asking that question, because now there are just a bunch of DApps. There are a bunch of programs and applications that we're using every single day, and using so much that it's clogging the network. So, and I think that's pretty awesome. Just to appreciate how far we've come in just 2 years and just 3 years, in these small amounts of time, where the things that we're complaining about today would have been our dream 3 years ago. And so that is really awesome to see. But that's where we are now. We can never rest on our laurels. We're always trying to innovate. 2020 was, I'd say, the rise of DeFi. Was really that big push. What does 2021 hold? What are we going to see? Is it going to be NFTs? Although they are already popular, pretty popular. What is 2021 going to hold for crypto?
Wow, that's interesting. I mean, I don't even know what tomorrow is going to hold for crypto, right? Like something changes so often. For me, I'm really hoping that we actually start moving more into that synergistic phase. Again, I've kind of touched on it before, where more of like an alliance where projects are hopefully coming together, because everything's really operating in this silo right now. Here's what I'm doing. Here's what my project's doing. Come and invest in me. Come and get my token, yada, yada. But like some of the things that like even Harvest is doing and some of these other projects is doing is how can two projects kind of come together and create a synergy to create something greater than what the two of them could do individually, right? And so to me, like that's really where, whether it's 2021 and 22, that's just where the future of crypto needs to go, right? Like we need to really have these money Legos connecting and then form like a full circle. So then again, you truly have this true ecosystem. Right now, we just have an ecosystem of silos, right? And everybody's kind of doing things independently. But I really think when you can get like an aggregator working with like another hedge platform that then can do like strategical longs, then that maybe then can connect to like an NFT marketplace where then you could build a strategy where people could like potentially group invest in an NFT as opposed to individual buyers, right? And so you could again like create strategies out of like artwork or real estate like you're seeing with realty, right? So like again, like imagine an aggregator feeding into realty and all that money being able to invest in properties, right? As opposed to like realty just trying to come and get like single individual investors, right? So again, those two projects connecting, and that's just something random. We're not working with realty or anything, but I'm thinking about like those different passive stream kind of things. And when you can just build this big ecosystem, imagine you now having, income stream from rental properties and some like USDC passive streams and, oil company over here monetize some oil rigs. So let me have that going, right? And so like, again, when you can have all these kind of things built up, we're all sharing the same educational pieces. Maybe the user comes to a one-stop hub now and they can invest in the Harvest and YFI and Alpha or, whatever all these projects are, as opposed to I need to go to 7 different websites and have 4 different currencies to do this and this and this. Again, it's all about making that simplicity for people. And right now we're just kind of hitting all these roadblocks on different angles. So to me, that's where really I'm hoping that we're going for the next evolution of this.
And it's like you said, who knows what will be tomorrow? Who knew that today would bring 20% losses? And it's all when we're talking about this space, it's really it's exciting because of the uncertainty, but not for the faint-hearted. And I think that we understand the risks. We understand the kind of the context, the big picture of what it means when there's a hack, of what it means. Of when there's a 20% jump or a 20% drop, how important or how unimportant that really is in the grand scheme of things. So over the years, I've had friends and family come to me and they've heard about it. What's the deal with Bitcoin, or what should I put some money in crypto? And I've always either said no, depending on how old they were, how tech savvy. Either no, don't bother with it, don't go near it, or if I felt they were a little more tech savvy and they would be able to, I'd say, yeah, sure, put in this, not any more money than you could feel free to lose. Don't put any more money than you could lose. Are we at the point, are we even nearing the point where we no longer have to give those caveats where we can say, oh yeah, you have some money that you're looking to invest? Yeah, go over to Harvest or go over to Urine. Yeah, go to this website and just, do it and put some money in without those caveats. That we already understand, that this is a still developing technology, that these are all essentially kind of betas, even though not betas, but we're still in the beta phase of the technology. Are we near that point yet?
No, not even close.
I like your honesty.
And again, I just keep going back to this conversation because it was just such a big deal. And this just happened within the past 3 or 4 days. But like literally, again, the same financial guy in FIA, I told him, Bitcoin and Ethereum. Like, because even when you log into Coinbase, there's now like 15 different things that you can buy, right? And XRP isn't on there anymore, but like that's XRP or Doji or Cardano, like a lot of these things are the things that you kind of hear in mainstream media. And like, I don't want to talk negatively or say anything about those projects, but again, people just hear this name. Oh, I heard it on CNBC. I'm just going to go buy that because I see it on Coinbase. And it's just like, whoa, you really should understand what you're buying. A lot of these things are very, almost everything is very free market speculation controlled, right? But anything outside of like it's called the majors, Bitcoin, Ethereum, they're way more subject to the free market speculation. So yeah, I have to be very careful because when, again, I mentioned earlier, Elon Musk mentions Dogecoin and it shoots up to 8 cents and then, oh, should I buy this? No, you should definitely buy this, especially when the creator of Doji himself said, I haven't done any development like in 4 years on this protocol, right? So it's like, so no, we're not at that point yet, because then too, there's scams in DeFi every day, right? Well, not every day, but you once a week you hear about some kind of crazy scam in DeFi. So again, it's keep going back to that hurdle where Aunt Matilda cannot yet invest in Bitcoin safely, or she can't jump into DeFi head on safely, right? There's just still too much crazy stuff out there. Cryptocurrency, like very general, yeah. Aunt Matilda, you should definitely buy, and not investment advice, but yeah, I mean, Bitcoin, Ethereum are the safer of the things that if you wanted to dip your toe into Bitcoin and kind of like join the financial revolution, then yeah, I think those two are the ones that you could feel comfortable talking to people about. But if you're just say like, hey man, yeah, you should check out Bitcoin, YOLO, right? Like that would be super dangerous, because then they'd be coming back, oh, I bought all 15 things I saw on Coinbase. And you're just going to be like, oh man, right? So again, I think there's still some definite maturity, and it goes back to the educational piece that we need to work on as a whole in crypto, getting away from this to the moon, and really, teaching people, hey, when you buy XRP, do you understand what you're buying, right? When you're buying Ethereum, are you understanding what you're buying, right? As opposed to you're hoping you're just buying a lotto ticket and it's going to go up in price.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of people, and because we're still getting those newbies coming in every day, but still I think a majority of the real active crypto people are kind of more early adopters, more ideologically involved. And for so long, we were thinking, all right, we gotta, the traditional system is broken. Let's make our own, decentralized financial system, a thing that's away from under the finger of the big institution of the big banks. But as time goes on and things become more developed, more successful, more valuable, in my mind, I think it's becoming more and more clear that we're going to reach a point of success where the big banks will just buy the protocols. And people think, wait, they're decentralized, they can't be bought. Yeah, they could. You buy enough of a governance token, you're running that protocol. You buy enough of a DAO, you're running that DAO. So if we get to that point where DeFi and so much of what's been built, and you're running a community, I'm sure you put blood, sweat, and tears into actually seeing growth. You want to see it successful, and you feel like you're part of this community push. How would you feel if, for example, Harvest or really any of these protocols becomes big enough that a big institution like a bank or like one of these big financial institutions actually buys control? Would you feel like happy and that's a validation of all the hard work? Or will you be really upset and think, wow, this is a failure. I put so much into this and now it just ends up being run by the big bank anyway?
It's hard to answer this question because I feel like this is already happening, like in industry as a whole, right? "Quote unquote whales," right? Like you own enough tokens, you own the protocol, right? And there's a lot of concerns, pretty much about every coin, dating back to 2017 when you're doing these ICOs and they're keeping 70% for themselves and then selling the other 30% and still making $200 million. So not only do they make $200 million, they own 70% control of the protocol. And then even in these fair launch, quote unquote fair launch, it's all about who you knew, so you had the alpha, and so most likely all those quote unquote fair launch people are just whales, and they're controlling the protocols too. And then this is kind of like goes to like the influencers that you have in crypto. A lot of those people are just whales in the projects, and then they're just trying to control you with the influence. So I mean, it's already happening today, right? And so that's kind of like one of the things that you have to be a little bit wary about with crypto as well, and kind of who you're following. That's why, I was recently quoted like, don't follow what Elon Musk says, right? Don't follow what somebody on Twitter is saying. Like, maybe they direct you to something, but then you do your own research and kind of figure out what that is, right? To answer your question personally, yeah, like it would kind of stink to work so hard and really have this idea like, I'm building this independent community. We've really grown to something great. And then all of a sudden, like Jeff Bezos comes and owns Harvest. And like now we're not free to be a collective. It becomes, again, this like one-way corporation. This is how we're going to do things. And you kill all innovation, right? Like that would really suck in that respect. At the same time, too, it on the flip side, it may provide legitimacy to our industry, right? Mildred sees that JP Morgan bought this huge company. Oh, well, now maybe I can go put my money in there and kind of be part of this whole decentralized. Now I can't lose my $1 million if I miskey an address. So I think there's some good and bad out of it. But I mean, ultimately, I think we're already in that trap. And those are the things that we really need to, again, goes back to the education, understanding what you're kind of getting into, understanding why is this person telling me to buy this coin, right? Is it because they just have a giant bag of it? Or is it really the next revolution in finance?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I also, it's different for me because I'm not attached to a particular project. So I would actually be, I just want to see the success overall of the cryptosphere. But, for someone like you who's more personally involved, I mean, obviously there's much more emotions involved there. So, I mean, let's, we're far away from, I think we're still a ways off from having that big of a problem. But in the meantime, we have what to see. Okay, as we're running out of time here, last question before I let you go. Of what you're able to tell us, what is Harvest, or what's next for Harvest Finance? What are you guys working on? What should we be excited about?
I think it's just kind of evolving the platform to, again, try to expand just beyond. We jump from farm to farm to farm, trying to bring in the best returns for everybody. That's always going to be our core thing. But I think, as I mentioned before, creating these partnerships and synergies with these other groups to try to take it beyond just yield farming, whether we can become like a true hedge fund by partnering with another project that kind of does that. Harvest has this really cool program called Council of 69. It's kind of like a seed incubator kind of thing. So if there's a new project coming in the space, we'll invest into your seed round, and then we'll also look for ways to collaborate with you where our two projects can work together. So I think I can't really share what's quote unquote coming up for Harvest per se. I think that's really what our next big focus is. We have over 40 different strategies, the most strategies of any aggregator. We have the most money in our system at 800 million or like $780 million. So for really us, it's just to continue to push on the cutting edge of those strategies, but then look into the greater ecosystem and saying, hey, what are things that other people are doing, and how can we connect those into Harvest? How can we make this a better space than we started with? Like week 4, we are already giving GitHub contributions, right? Again, we're doing this Council of 69 to try to help out these other projects. So, Harvest is very much into giving back and trying to make this a better place, in addition to trying to make its platform better, right? So I think you're really going to start seeing that in the next couple months. We have a few things brewing in that Council of 69. We have some other collaborations that we're starting to really talk about. The newest product, which is probably going to launch today. So a little bit of alpha for you, and then some of the users that are going to hear this maybe next week. iFarm, which is basically an interest-bearing version of Farm and the profit share. So you deposit Farm into the profit share, you're getting a cut of the fees generated on the platform. But if you were like to take that Farm and deposit it Aave, well, then you would miss out on that income. iFarm is actually your farm still deposited Harvest, but an interest-bearing receipt. So you're still getting that money, and then you could deposit that interest-bearing receipt at like an Aave and then still borrow from that. So you're still collecting money at Harvest while you're able to leverage it at Aave at the same time. So kind of like, again, like the synergistic approach of not just Harvest. Now we've connected possibly with another platform that users could then continuously to make money on top of their money that they're generating at Harvest. So really, I think that's the next thing that's about to come up, which will unlock so many other things.
Well, it's exciting. Every day becomes bring the new innovation. Even like you said today, with Harvest launching a new feature, it's literally every single day in the space. Red, thank you so much for taking the time and explaining to our viewers kind of your outlook on how you see the space overall and more in detail about what's happening in the space. Very exciting. I really appreciate speaking to you, and I'm sure our viewers did as well. And for all of our viewers here at Reimagine 2021, I'm Yonah Hochhauser. Thanks for watching.